There we go. Technical difficulty there. What's up, Huddle crew? Welcome to our podcast this week. We got some special guests with us. Jason Ramsay from California, I believe. And
Yes.
with me, as always, Mr. Jose and Daniel Gonzalez out of Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yo, yo.
Guys, are you
What
feeling
up?
better, Daniel? You back in
I
the
am
mend?
feeling way better.
Nice. So we just got back from Tice, and this is our second week back, actually. And Daniel came back with the old COVID.
Yeah,
But
dude.
so the last podcast, he was hacking and coughing the whole time.
Yeah, it was not good, but I'm all better now.
Nice.
We can't get
to
that
hear.
through the microphone and stuff, can we? We can't get
Yeah.
No,
I think that's
you're
how I
safe.
got it.
No,
They're
put on a
working on
mask,
that. They
Jason.
have-
That would
they
be
have
funny.
AI working on that right now. AI is trying to figure out a way for that.
So Jason's a flooring installer, runs a subcontracting company out of California, and I want your quick take, Jason, on who you are, kind of what niche you've fallen into in flooring, and then a little bit about your background, but then on our topic, the pitfalls of luxury vinyl. Give us the high level view, and then we'll dig in. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sounds good. So tile and flooring contractor out here in beautiful Orange County, California, land of avocado toast and yoga pants, right?
Yeah, baby.
That's right. But I started in 93 as a carpet installer, evolved, went through a lot of trial and errors, ups and downs, became a tile and flooring contractor out here. Eventually got my moisture testing for slabs certification, and then evolved into a flooring inspector. And out here, I run about 5 employees, and just dealing with the everyday in and out of this business. It's amazing, right?
Yeah. We talk a lot about the fun, the complications, the pitfalls of the industry itself, and so and how sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. So you mentioned a couple things as we were kind of getting to know each other before the podcast started. One of them being that, let me mention 2 of them, but one of them being that you had a light bulb or a moment of like, hey, I want to know more about this. And you really started digging into training and getting certified and things like that. What can you tell us a little bit about that? We're really big on certifications and training and improving yourself.
Yeah, and I agree. So I was reading the manufacturer's instructions one day, and I was going through all of it, and I was just kind of blown away at all the basically booby traps was what I called it for us installers out there. I felt like it was just unbelievable the things that we had to conform to in order to really have that manufacturer's warranty and also provide that to the customer. So reading that, I just was like, I was almost scared, and so that started my journey into and really an obsession. I mean, NAFCT and Ardix, and I just, if there was something out there that I could take, I mean, and a lot of it was during COVID as well, so I was taking lots of webinars and stuff. But then, if there was a class somewhere that I could go and I could take something, I mean, I was doing it. I was really investing in me, and then I started to put my employees through the through the same things.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was the second thing was you have employee installers. California with the AB5 rules, really doubled down in a lot of ways and make it really tough, if not impossible, for this 1099 thing. You have to be a legitimate company to, perform the labor the way that you do. So I thought that was interesting. One of the things we promote big here as well is that subs. I own a commercial floor covering company in Wichita, Kansas. So we have about 70 to 80 subcontractors that we run, and we have about 12 to 13 employee in-house benefited, health insurance kind of
W-2s.
W-2s,
There you
employee
go.
installer. Sometimes I go really deep in that to make sure it drives home with people. But you know, one of the things that we promote big time is if you're a sub, you need to be hiring employees and not trying to 1099 out your labor at that point. You know, these guys should be on your payroll. Whatever benefits package you can afford to give them should be given to them, and they should be on your as a W-2. It sounds like that's pretty much a must in California.
Yeah, that's right. There's really no way around it, and it doesn't really even matter your structure. You can structure LLC, S corp, DBA, whatever. And for instance, if I hire somebody that does flooring, they are W-2. You know, there's this thing called this ABC rule. IRS has it, California state has it, and to try to classify somebody as a 1099, it's virtually impossible. So now, if they're a plumber, right, we can do that, right? Painter, something.
Yeah,
like
because
that.
it boils down, and especially in California, to is it work that you could do or that you perform on in your daily business? And if so, then you cannot sub that portion out. That should be done
I'm gonna have to do some
in-house.
research on that.
Now, that
one.
doesn't mean that flooring, it doesn't mean that flooring contractors can't sub to you. It just means that then your employees or your workers must be W-2 employees.
Yeah, and the regulation with that really comes down to it's funny. It's insurance companies, right? It's workers' comp companies when they're doing the audits, and that's because you know the state franchise board or the tax board or the EDD employee development department. They're not throwing darts and just going around and auditing people. The way they find out is if somebody reports that business, but it's really the workers' comp, and they're making all the money, right, on the premiums and
that's what they want, right?
That's exactly what it is. And it seems like out of all the agencies and all the bureaucracy, all the things that all the hoops I have to jump through, it's the insurance company that I have to really comply with, which
they're the ones that are going to give you your yearly audit and all that good stuff.
Even though we're pay go, so it you know, it's pay as you go, the workers' comp, and they see all that, they still audit, you know, and look for it. But so that's how it is out here, and there's still a lot of businesses, I see them all the time, that are skirting that system. And you know, I can go onto the contractor state license board and I can look at their license. That license on there tells us so much more information, and it tells us if they have workers' comp or not. So let's say I'm doing an inspection and I do a deep dive on the company, and I'm like, look, you guys, you know, 4 guys, 5 guys here doing this job or whatnot, and you're exempt from workers' comp. So, I mean, I'm not the workers' comp police, but my point is, you know, there's a lot of people not playing by the rules.
Yeah, mind your P's and Q's
nationwide, right? That's not just California.
Yeah.
But it looks like California has a better handle on it than the rest of the U.S. does.
You just taught me that insurance companies have way more pull than they think they do for that.
They know.
Well, they don't sponsor all the every golf tournament in the world because they're not making money. California, what they did with their AB5 is really make it just that much more complicated to then sub out to a third tier sub. First tier is typically first and second tier. So the general subs to me, and I can sub mine as long as they have their
COIs, the certificate of insurance, and then they name you, and they can do all that. Then you're good when you come to that audit.
Yeah, it's just a matter of making sure that you are, that you have all that, but that's where it kind of gets rid of the third, fourth, fifth tier where everybody's exempt on a job from work comp, and nobody, and it opens up that risk factor. So, well, that's a quick lesson, everybody, on insurance. Now on to flooring. We could have been,
Give it a whole
one of the
topic
things
on
you-
that.
Yeah, one of the things
we're
you
gonna have
mentioned
to talk
earlier-
about that one time, just the whole episode.
Yeah, I was going to say
absolutely.
one
That's a
thing he
good one.
mentioned earlier was all the complicated stuff about the industry, and that's one of them. But yeah, so you got into flooring. You probably got snagged like the rest of us and stayed in. Jose and Daniel both have the same kind of
You get sucked
story.
in, man. I mean,
You know,
that's right.
choose flooring.
It-
Flooring chose
yeah.
me, right?
It sucks you in and doesn't let you out.
Doesn't let you out.
So
Doesn't let you-
today, sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when it's good, it's good, but when it's bad, it can be bad.
Amen. Well, and kudos to you for getting inspector certification as well, because that's one of the things that we think. I personally haven't done it, and I think that it would be a good thing not only for myself but for installers out there to know what the inspectors are going to be looking for. We've kind of talked about that in previous episodes as well, but kudos on that.
Yeah, it strengthens your whole business because you're able to see the other side of it, and then you're able to then curtail any of those things that you may be doing in your business, right? That's really what I did, why I started that for. And then it just blossomed into this whole other world and this whole other thing. But that's why I did that, because you think you know stuff as an installer, and you think you can run your top cutter, and you think you can do your you think you can do all this stuff. The reality is it's mind blowing, and I suggest any of you guys to pursue that. At least
Guess I better
have
use
that
better use that raffle win that I got.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good ones out there. NAFCT has one, and there's a few other ones. Some can be a little scammy and stuff, but I highly recommend.
The NAFCT is one that I believe, both of these guys. What's up, Roland? Both of these guys work with the NAFCT from a training perspective and curriculum and all that kind of stuff. So great organization there with Sonny and Paul.
That's right.
Yeah. So the Unforeseen Pitfalls, a luxury vinyl.
Yes.
You know what? Good point there, Daniel. I want to bring up, we're going to be at the summit coming up in Dalton, Georgia.
Like 2 weeks, right?
In a couple of weeks. So,
really?
yeah.
Wow.
So if you can make it out to Dalton, and it's at the Dalton Convention Center, NAFCT is putting that on in unison with Unite, which is Robert Varden, I believe, and his group. And it's a great opportunity for installers to come out, meet other crews, work on best practices. One of the things I plead with our installer audience for is a lot of companies, we go and we meet with other companies at Fuse Alliance or StarNet or FCICA. And what we're there for is to absorb best practices from other companies and then see if we can go back to our office and apply those. That's what these things are for the installers, to go get to know other installers, find out best practices. You just learned from Jason. And what we've talked about multiple times is getting your inspector's license. A lot of times it's a partial online, partial in person. There's multiple different ways you can go about it. But being trained, all these things we promote on the Huddle here, getting out and meeting other installers. Let's stop this siloing each other away and get out, meet each other, understand what Jason's doing great in California, what Jose and Daniel are doing great in Michigan, what we may be doing right down here in Wichita, what other people are doing right in South Carolina, and then try to take those business best practices back in your installation business. So that come see us at the summit. We'll be exhibiting there. Go Carrera will, and come see us. So on to the topic, which is probably isn't it? Didn't they say, Daniel and Jose? Did you guys catch on at Tice? It's still the fastest growing. They thought LVT would cool off, and it's not.
Yeah,
it's not cooling off.
Everyone is almost going, like, there's a lot of talk with the sales guys about going back to laminate, but vinyl is not going anywhere anytime soon because, I mean, you were at the show. The amount of people there that were exhibiting vinyl was ridiculous.
Well, I think
Yes.
it's
I
industries
think
too, right? Like, is it
it's
residential
something.
or commercial? So in the commercial world, I don't see any type of resilient going anywhere anytime soon. Um, it's
No,
just,
you're right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's got to
So
be easy to clean,
moving.
easy to maintain.
Yeah, no wax, there's a lot of great benefits, but today's topic's about pitfalls. So, what kind of
Yes.
pitfalls are we seeing? Do we know about in the residential? Well, let's kick it off in the residential world. A lot of that's going to be your SPCs, your solid cores made of different
Yeah.
things. What kind of things have you guys ran across that we would be valuable to the audience to understand that, like, watch out for this?
Drop lock.
Drop lock.
I
That's
mean, we
right.
can talk to we can ask the inspector, but I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
drop lock's a big deal.
And before he gives his 2 cents into that, because I know it's going to be a lot smarter than mine. A lot of the issues that we're having, it might not even be the product, right? The majority of the issues is the installer error of it. It's just the margin for error is just so slim on that drop lock that it's got to be absolutely perfect. And you can't have someone who's used to getting paid by the square foot go in there, try to bang out a job like they're doing a regular laminate project, walk away, everything looks good. You get a phone call a week later and everything's thumbnailing because it wasn't laid and set in perfect before they either pounded it down too hard or pressed it or rolled it, however they want to engage that locking system.
So what's the problem, guys? What are the problems we are seeing? Like, what are the symptoms of the issue of the install?
So,
And-
and you guys are right about the drop lock. There's angle lock. There's a lot of different locking mechanisms, and I think sometimes guys don't understand. They blanket approach these products, and what does that come back to? Right? We're not reading. We're not reading the instructions. I mean, you got QR codes. They're on YouTube. They're in Spanish. They're in English. They're in French. In Italian. I see. So there's really no excuse to understand what locking mechanism is on the product that you're installing, but guys just don't. And then there's no communication from the head installer, foreman, owner, whatever. But let's rewind that. Let's talk about the first. So this stuff is marketed so well, right? Your brother's doing it, the designer, the sister, the cousin. It's everywhere. You're on Facebook. It's all over the place. Everybody's doing it. It's the best thing since sliced bread. But that. And then you go into these showrooms, right? These people go to these showrooms. They're looking at toasted almond and butter wheat, and this one looks great with my paint and decor or whatnot. But the reality, what's really needs to be discussed is who's installing it, how they're installing it, are they qualified or certified? But salespeople don't want to touch upon that. Why?
Well, there's multiple reasons why. Just my opinion here, but one of them being that the percentage of installers that are certified or have taken some level of training has fallen off a cliff in the last 10, 15 years. So it's a shortage of these certified and highly trained installers, first off. And secondly, it's like, I did a talk at Tice about this. Like, they're scared to promote their installer as for fear of losing out or getting gone around. I noticed that a bit at the show. I promote, like, sell yourself, sell your company based on the quality of your installer group. And so anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
So a lot of these showrooms, they don't have in-house installation. Okay. So once they make a sale, that customer is done. You're on their own, right? And then everything falls into whose lap? The installer's lap, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is where we're seeing the big problem. So salespeople, they may not necessarily be taking product knowledge classes. They may have worked at a grocery store a month before, and now they're in this environment where they're selling floors. and they really don't know about all the products and how it has to be installed. So the biggest pitfall that I see is and as you guys probably know, is going to be floor prep.
I think
There's
we've
been a
had about
lot of
15
talk about
different
floor
comments
prep.
already.
I mean, just this one right here from Chad, prepping the homeowner for what true prepping is, right?
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
Jimmy
And
saying
so-
that flatness is the big issue, and then Rollin was just like floor prep, like right out the bat, and that's one of the big issues.
So salespeople don't want to touch upon that, right? Either they don't even know, they don't care, or they don't want to scare that person off, right?
I think they're trained to avoid that conversation altogether because it could essentially scare a client away.
Could be. A lot of them don't know the difference between an SPC, LVP. Well, they don't know the lamin. They don't know what they're even selling. They don't even know. They have no
like
idea.
You said, this one looks good in my house, so that's the one that I want.
Yeah, butter toast. This is going to be great with the walls. But the reality is these products, they need to be almost you need countertop flatness. So, we go back to the 3/16 and 10. We all understand that. But you think homeowners, they can't process this ASTM F710 stuff and manufacturer's guidelines and 3/16 and 10. They don't even know an inch to a millimeter. They don't know. Just to make it look nice. But then what happens is 12, 16, 18, 14, 22 months later, when there's deflection, right, and you've got creased joints and they're starting to have ledging, and then they're starting to break and come up. They're hitting their toe, their socks. It's a whole thing. It's downhill from there, right? All because of the guy that came in at $15,000 who included grinding, priming, and self-leveling everything, to the other guy that comes in who doesn't have that, and he's just going to try and do a spot patch or something, doesn't even come in with a 10-foot level or screed, and it's going to do the job for $8,000. So you got X amount versus this amount, and most customers are price driven. I get it. But this is why we have to try to educate people, and this is my mission, is to try to educate homeowners. They still don't want to see. So when I go into a lot of these inspections and it's totally ruined, people, their eyes are wide open. They're listening. They want to learn, right? But hindsight's 20/20. So when I go in and I do an estimate for somebody and I'm 15,000, and the other person's 8,000, well, that's a big difference, and there's a reason, right? The reason is these products need to be super flat. The SLUs are expensive. Primers are expensive. Getting it right is expensive. Having your gauge rakes and spike rollers and getting everything done right, there's so much more to it than just mixing up some Webcrete 95 and throwing that down and thinking you're just going to patch your way through this job. No, you can make it worse, because what you thought was a high spot could actually be a low spot. So you're grinding it and you're making a bigger low spot. You're making it worse. And you don't have the right tools to tell you what's really going on with that substrate or subfloor. So getting it flat is the number one issue that I'm seeing in this industry with these products. Now, laminates for the most part, and then wood floors, we still need that flatness, right? We still need that 3/16. Some we can get, an eighth here and there, but with the laminates, but we still need that flatness. So it really doesn't matter what product you're putting down. This notion that this luxury vinyl products are so inexpensive and they're waterproof and all this stuff, and you don't need to do anything to them, couldn't be farther from the truth, right?
Yeah, the waterproof thing drives me nuts, but
it drives me crazy too.
I gotta
if you look
say,
outside, it's been raining here for 48 hours. All my extra samples, I'm going to build a raft, my man, with this LVP, and we're going to see how waterproof it is.
Yeah, the whole waterproof. You mentioned earlier, one of the bait and switches is about waterproofing. It being waterproof, for example, is just how well they market this stuff. It is mind-blowing how good of a job they've done at marketing this waterproof scenario. Well, yeah, if you spill a cup of water in a well-installed floor in the middle, away from the edges that are likely not siliconed or anything like that, okay, it could be waterproof in that zone. But if you're on slab, it does nothing for moisture mitigation or moisture coming up from the bottom. And it also does nothing if you're going to flood a room and it goes around to the edges. It's like, yeah, it's waterproof in a cup size. Like this
So-
big of a square foot in the middle of a well installed floor. But there's a lot of pitfalls with that. So anyway,
Yeah, there's an ASTM standard for the product, and basically, I think it starts at they have to be up to 24 hours, and then they measure the swelling of the XP pad, right? The your underlayment pad that's attached, and or the product. So I think it's like 2 to 3% or 5%. So that there is a standard there that they can technically say that, and they has to be done. It has to within 24. You have to pass 24 hours, and then
Right, and we keep
there's
on talking about ASTM standards, right? And I think that's one of the misconceptions is that just since we're installers, we automatically should know all these things, but there's plenty of installers that don't. And I think that's one of the big hiccups is you have professional installers doing it, but they may not be as professional as you think, right? Just because you do it every day doesn't mean that you're doing it right. And
or why you're doing
ASTM,
it that way.
yeah, and ASTM, you know, they have these things outlined, like you mentioned F710 earlier, and there's probably
Yeah.
guys listening right now or ladies that don't know what F710 is. So
yeah.
if you don't, definitely go look it up. I mean, it's a document that you have to pay for, but
We should
it's
probably
necessary
do a
evil.
podcast on ASTM F710.
100%.
Yeah, I'm on
Just-
that committee. The FO6 is the committee.
we
for
just
that.
joined. We just joined as well.
Oh, cool, good for you guys. They raised the price too, so fun with that, right?
Well, we
But,
joined like 2 months ago, maybe.
Oh, okay. So, well, anyways, that's great. Gives you voting rights, and there's so much knowledge out there, understanding why you're doing things right. Why are we getting this substrate into 3/16 and 10? Why are we putting vapor retarders, vapor barriers? And we can have a discussion on that someday too, if you want, the difference of vapor retarders and barriers, and using that terminology properly,
100%.
right?
So some of I just want to bring up something. Some of the items that we're talking about, the pitfalls, really they display themselves in what you were talking about earlier. We got some deflection comments in some of the comments, but the delamination, the things that happen because the sock grabbers and the toe cutters and the things of this, that is the symptom from not properly preparing, not proper installation, proper acclimation, proper storage and acclimation, and
that's right.
all of
Storage
these
and acclimation,
things.
two different.
Correct.
What are you talking about? It doesn't need acclimation. It says right on the box. It doesn't need acclimation.
Ready for
I got a good story for you from one I did last week on that one.
All those people who have their commercial materials stored outside in a Connex in 75-degree weather, it's like 120 in there. You're really compromising that material. So,
and probably one of the most difficult things to do, because every job is unique in and of itself, and the challenges and areas to put the material and time constraints and on and on and on, and trying to conform to everything. It's nearly impossible. They make it so impossible for the installers, as you guys know. And I know you guys have climate controlled storage places, which is fantastic, and you're able to document and show all that stuff. I mean, that's what you got to do, because it's just not practical to be able to on some of your
the best we can do is we have an acclimation zone, and we try to get it as close as possible, because frankly, just as you were mentioning, there's job site access issues, and I'm in commercial, so in that world there's job site access issues, storage issues, on-time deliveries written into your contract, where it's like on-time delivery, but it's got to acclimate for 24 or 48 hours. Well, sorry, like this has to happen. And there's all these schedule constraints and all those stuff. And Preferred does a lot of commercial as well, but they also do some residential. I only do commercial, except for once in a great while, some friends or architects, their houses will do, but we don't do retail residential. But anyway, long story short, it's all those constraints that force us into these boxes of trying to make a product work, and sometimes pushing the limits of what acclimation means.
Yeah, that's right. I just inspected one where they did it in August. It was schools and it was LVP, and it's all the products outside. It's 90 degrees, right? You can imagine. Go and install it, turn on the ACs and everything. Guess what happens?
Yep.
Yeah.
Man.
Gap
Yeah,
Central,
and
right? So
site conditions and all that stuff comes into play as well. So
Yeah,
Jason,
when
go
I
ahead.
went to the NAFCT, I went to one of the seminars. I mean, this was probably 2018 or something. Brent Fike from Ropey actually had a presentation on just dimensional stability and how much the plank can actually grow. And then you do that over, some of these companies are saying that there's no limit to, you don't need any transitions anywhere. There's no limit anymore, right? But the science behind how much it can grow and how much is actually acceptable is ridiculous. Like, man, how can it grow that much and still be considered stable? And they are.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where knowing all this stuff comes into play, right?
Yeah, they have memory. So there's something called an annealing process. So when they're made, they're heated at a certain temperature and size, and so they go back to that size, right? And so this one I measured. I did my own redneck test, and I demonstrated how just in my truck it grew. This product was like 35 and 15/16. It was like a nominal 36, but just in my truck for 30 minutes it grew to 36 inches. And then I took it out and put it into a project that was on onto this concrete substrate. And it went back down to 35 and 15/16 in a matter of a few minutes, right? So just by that. And then when I inspected these schools, 4 different schools, every plank was 35 and 15/16. Every plank. And everything was gapped. And the gaps were like 32nd and the 16th. But regardless, every plank. I mean, I measure so many freaking planks. I'm done with this. That's enough. You guys are going to get the point. So, but anyway, so with that, it's definitely so important to acclimate. Now, I'll measure residentials where the people have the attic stock sitting outside for 2 years in all kinds of weather, and they're perfect. Okay, so there you go, right? But so to turn back, so the first thing that the first pitfall is that flatness and the importance of really educating that buyer, that consumer, how important it is to really get that right and to spend the money on that. Everything is prep. You prep your walls, you go to paint your car, you clean your dishes, you prep, right? You're not just throwing dirty dishes into the dishwasher. You're going to clean them up. You're going to prep those things. Prep. And why in all these other industries, everything else, prep is okay. But in the flooring industry, people don't want to pay prep. And that's what it comes down to. For some single reason, people don't want to pay for prep. And I see it all the time. Guys are always telling me they don't want to pay, Jason. They don't want to pay. Well, why'd you do the job then? I mean, that's another thing, right? Guys are still doing the projects, right? And they know better. And so, so prep is what I find right now with these products in residential is the number one thing. And then I would say second, right now would be some type of moisture management system, one way or the other, right? And starting by reading those manufacturers' guidelines are going to give most installers the direction of where to go with that. And then we can get into expansion.
Kendall, had a comment up here saying that there was an entire upper level that they had to replace, and the manufacturer didn't require a vapor barrier underneath it. And then after this failure, they retracted, said, all right, we're going to change the spec. And then now they require it. But the fact of the matter is that it's just like everything else, right? It's almost like a trial and error. If they don't catch it at the factory, they're going to catch it in the field somewhere. And at least this manufacturer owned up and said, yep, it's our fault. Let's figure this out and change our actual spec.
Yeah, I want to bring something up. So we have the installer side, floor prep, making sure we properly communicate to the end user, whoever that may be, the reasons why we need to do floor prep. And if you can use the ASTM standards or the manufacturer's recommendations in your favor, that's what I always do. I'm like, I would love to just come in and blow and go and knock this thing out. But you have, 1/4 inch dips all the way down your hallway. Your LVT is going to look like hammered poop when it's completed. A, B, I can't control gappage or anything on the install as it's going, because when it goes down, it takes more room, and you have issues, particularly if it's like a VCT or something, let alone LVT. But the point I was getting to is we also have some manufacturing things we need to talk about, like regions of manufacturing and things of this that we need to be cognizant of as installers, and where we know that there are clear regions of the world where product come from that will give you a higher likelihood of issue. Do you guys?
Why is that? Why is it the region, do you think? Or is
it's mainly the raw materials that they use to make their backing
systems. It's where they source. It's where they source the chemicals and the products from, because they could be sourcing from 2, 3, 4 different places, and manufacturing in one region, and we don't know what goes in that secret sauce per se. Right? We don't know. We can't police all that. You just don't know how the quality of those things. So yeah,
right. And that's where the manufacturers come in, right? Because they should be testing every batch that comes in to make sure that it's supposed to be exactly what they need.
Yeah.
One of my favorite manufacturers, which I'm not going to mention manufacturers' names, but one of my favorite manufacturers does a really good job of visiting the actual plants.
Yeah, that's right.
Talking with the actual people on the floor making the product, and does a really good job of vetting out and making sure that the plant is producing something his brand can stand behind.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really important, is to make sure you're dealing with manufacturers who care enough about their product that they know where it's sourced. They understand where the raw materials are coming from. This is the complication of being an installer. I wish it wasn't this way either, guys. I wish we didn't have to be chemists, concrete experts, raw material experts, and understand how the product's actually made.
But it doesn't change the fact that we need to be. Just because we don't think it should be that way, it doesn't change the fact that that's how it is right now.
That's the only way you can mitigate your risk.
Yeah, and like Chad said right here, I mean, we talk about it all the time, reading the bucket of adhesive, and that's pretty much what he's saying. You make sure you're reading it. It doesn't matter if you've installed it 1,000 times. On that next one, the instructions could have changed.
I have a carpet tile situation with this exact thing, where the backing system changed, the installation instructions changed, a lot changed, and all of a sudden we had 2,000 yards that had to be replaced, and it was not a cheap thing. The manufacturer did come to the table on it, but it was a major problem. And so I have another instance where we were putting an underlayment under LVT, and the instructions in the package, this is complicated a little bit, puts us at another disadvantage, but the instructions in the package change. So I also encourage you to check the online stuff, because that's what we did. Verified with the manufacturer which way it was to be done. And when they had an issue and the GC tried to point and say, well, the install instructions say film down, and we were like, well, that's outdated. They can't recall 20,000 rolls or 200,000 rolls and change this piece of paper. They keep their online stuff up to date.
That's right.
So that's another point to make sure as an installer, you're kind of read the packaging, but also I encourage everybody, Google is your friend. Go find the install instructions online and just double check.
That's right. Those are always up to date.
Yeah, that saved our rear end on this project. Literally, the fact that we installed it correctly on the most updated installation instructions, and not the way that the pamphlet in the material said to do it.
Right, and I think that's one of the only downside I can see of all the networking and stuff that we do, is that you become known by some of these people, right? Because I've called some of these tech reps, and then they're like, "Oh, I trust you." And it's like, I need an answer, man. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
What do you think? I think I want to be covered.
We had one where the
Amen.
primer said, wait 4 hours before installing the flooring. But online, it said, wait 4 hours or ambient conditions depending, or something like that, right? So I'm not in Delaware or New York or Florida, right? Southern California, pretty nice weather. And so it was gold after 2 hours. We were good. We were good to go. I had my hygrometer, I tested it, everything was fine. And she had made a big thing because the bucket said 4 hours. Well, the bucket was like 11 months old. They had updated, or such like you said, and that saved me.
Yeah. So knowing those things, it doesn't take a lot of time. Just take a few minutes of your time and verify that your install instructions are correct. It could save you. And then, kind of understanding, I think stores need to be cognizant of this more so than the installers, of where the products are and what the products are that they're selling.
So I tell stores, listen, when they come to pick the material up from your shop or whatever, print it out, or whoever's buying it, print out the installation instructions, supply it on the invoice, on an email, whatever, give it to the guys picking it up, because typically guys are picking up the day of install. They're not acclimating, right? But regardless, whenever they pick it up, hand them that so they have it. And at least you've done that, right? You've at least given them the opportunity to read those installations, and that'll really help with claims.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. It's one of the things we push at Go Carrera a lot, is the dynamic work order part of that is you can add it at any point and make sure that that's brought to their attention so that the installer knows the most updated installation instructions.
And giving that to the installer needs to know days, if not more time, what they're working with, and be able to read that stuff. Another problem is there's so many things coming at the installer that they have to deal with and think about. You can't just do the job anymore. You have 82 things going on that you try to micromanage all of that, and it can be difficult. And then the installer is expected to do all these things. It's easy to sit back and just say, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't read this. Look, it says over here 1/16 by 1/16 by 1/16. You used 1/16 by 1/16 by 3/16, or whatever the heck, right? I mean, it can be so much. It's easy for somebody that's not in that world, really, that's down in there getting their hands dirty doing it, to sit back and
get her done. Got that pressure.
Timelines.
So many armchair quarterbacks out there, and all these technical dudes and people. I get it, but you know what? Put yourself in these guys' shoes and women's shoes. It's not easy. They have a lot to think about, and it's all in their lap. If people make the sale, whatever it is, that chain down, and everything falls into that installer to get 82 things right. It just takes one.
I think
that's why it's important.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the good things, like that's going on right now, because you see a lot of the techs that are coming in from the installation world, and some of these
prerequisites.
Yeah, some of these certifications that I go to, some of the reps are like, all right, we're talking about this right now, but in reality, we all know that job sites aren't going to be ran like this. And they actually go through different things, like if the job site was like this is what I do, and stuff like that. So at least we have that we can kind of look forward to if it keeps on trending that way.
So one thing we're finding as well with these residential floating products, these SPCs, LVPs, I don't know, we see that a lot of the problems are about that 6 millimeter and below. So if you're up over that 6 millimeter product, they have that dimensional layer to it, that stability layer that they're being made with. In order to make a less expensive product or cheaper, you omit that layer, right? And so now you're down with a product that's 5.5 millimeters. And this is where I see a lot of failures, with products, right? From temperatures, sunlight.
And to be clear, this is in residential on your click flooring.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm not talking about commercial.
I mean, even commercially, we're seeing more and more, even on the specs, where they have click flooring going in commercial spaces, which we try to lead them away from that right away.
Absolutely. Smartest thing you can do. we never lost money on a job we didn't do.
Yeah.
Dang, I've heard that somewhere.
Right, that's what we're saying, right? That's
the
really what it comes down to. I just heard
like
of a
Robin
200,000 square foot project. They floated the commercial thing. Are you kidding me? So,
Yeah, and Rollins says, they sell it as it's so easy to install, anyone can do it, and that's just when we talk about floor
is that a
prep.
Geico commercial?
when we talk about floor
good.
prep, right? It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the product could be that easy to install, but we always talk about your base. Where are you starting from? You're starting from that prep, right? If you don't do that prep right, you're already putting yourself far behind where you need to be. And
Yeah.
this goes
The
on. This is
manufacturers-
for residential and commercial.
That's right.
And the manufacturers are advertising everything as the DIY, which kind of takes away from our credibility as professional installers.
Well, it doesn't
Which are
help
like,
that
oh,
the
well,
box stores
DIY.
are saying free install. We talked about that a lot
Yeah.
of times.
Yeah.
This free installation gimmick doesn't help our cause at all. It devalues what the installer does. And I don't look, no one's actually believes it, but somehow it does work for
someone believes it. Someone believes it.
I can't hardly believe they actually think the guy's there working for free. Like it's built into the price. But at the end of the day, the optics of it is not good for our industry, in my opinion. But I don't want any of the box stores to put a head out on me or anything. I just wish that they would maybe approach it a little bit different.
Technically, we'd love their marketing department to come on here and tell us why they do it, right?
Yeah. Come on. I won't name any.
Everybody likes something
happening here.
So I think we've spent like over a half hour on just the residential aspect. So commercially, I think over the years, one of the biggest things that we've seen is the adhesive that goes underneath. And we actually switched from pressure sensitive to essentially semi-wet setting everything to get that actual bond going, because we talked about raw materials and everything that goes into the product, and then you just see plasticizer migration, right, and evaporation, and these things they're gonna shrink eventually. So what can you do to mitigate that? That's what we found our solution was as soon as we started doing this, it was less complaints. We go to these jobs years later, everything's still together. So I mean, it's kind of cheap insurance, right? You're still using the same products, you're just using them in a slightly different way.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I also think that concrete, commercial brings in just mostly concrete and brings in moisture testing and understanding the moisture parameters and understanding that even the best moisture test can be off by about 2 to 3% in one direction or the other. When you're pushing these limits, having some security on your either recommendation of a full mitigation system or a true wet set adhesive, like a modified silane kind of adhesive, or at the very least, educating the people that this is the parameter. Remember, this could be off 2 to 3%. All of them say that. All of the moisture testing. So moisture comes into in a big way in commercial because we don't have crawl spaces and stuff. A lot of the slabs are slab on grade. Who knows if it's a 50-year-old slab? If there's there's likely, even if it did have a vapor barrier under the slab, it's very likely that it's completely degraded to nothing. And so you have to take measures to protect both you and your client. It's your client that's going to have to deal with this, or should get a 10 to 15 year floor. And so you have that responsibility to, and I'm talking more from the company salespeople perspective, to make sure that you're educating the client in a way that they understand that, hey, we're going to do moisture tests. If it's pushing the limit at all, we're going to need to do something about it.
That's right. And I think we have to really emphasize time of install moisture testing, and what does that mean, right? So you can do a calcium chloride, or you can do a 2170 in C2 days before, weeks, whatever. That's just at that time gives you just
Yes.
a little snapshot, like taking blood pressure on somebody, right? That doesn't tell you everything. It just tells you that aspect, RH in the slab, in that spot, RH in that spot, right? So what we're finding is a bigger issue is going to be atmospheric conditions, right? Your dew point and your ionic dew point. And what does that mean, right? So I know they're big words, but let's simplify it. So the time of install, you want to test that top gradient layer, right, of the slab, right? You want to test that moisture content because that's what we're adhering to. And that's most important. We want that bond there. So at time of install, it's very important to put whatever meter that you're using down. And if that meter doesn't have a hygrometer built in, you want to have that hygrometer so it's going to tell you your ambient conditions, specifically that dew point. And then you want to have that infrared thermometer, and you want to test the surface temperature, right, of the substrate to see, are we within that 10 degrees Fahrenheit? Are we above that, right? You want your surface temperature 10 degrees above Fahrenheit, above the dew point. So if your dew point's 60, you want that surface temperature to at least be 70. Okay, then we can really ensure that we're
Kick of knowledge.
Yeah, these are going to be new standards that you're going to start seeing soon as an ASTM, but also you're going to see manufacturers incorporating this more and more. We already are in their guidelines, especially coatings, adhesive manufacturers, things like that. So you'll look at there's a few manufacturers, they want 5 degrees. Usually it's 5 degrees Celsius, 10 degrees Fahrenheit. But what's most important is time of install and documenting that, using geotag, using photos. Because sometimes we can have a dew point and you can't always see that moisture on the surface. You're going to have a bond failure. So
yeah, that's awesome that you bring that up. I think even I just learned a few little tidbits there. So good to know. We're going to have to start wrapping things up. I want to go around and say best approach for an installer. Both residential and commercial, just best approach as they come in, they're doing an LVP job. 20 seconds, best approach thought process wise when they step onto a job site or they accept a job.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with you, Jason.
Okay, yeah. First of all, read the manufacturer's guidelines. Secondly, read the manufacturer's guidelines. Okay, that's what I'm going to start with. And really knowing your products, getting your fore prep proper, and then documenting your moisture.
Awesome. How about you, Daniel?
Yeah, absolutely. Any certification you go to, they always end with read manufacturer's specifications, unless, manufacturer's specifications oversee anything that we say here, right? So definitely check out the manufacturer's recommendations and just know that moisture vapor is always come up through the earth regardless of what you think. So moisture is going to be an issue anywhere you go, residentially, commercially. So always keep that in the back of your mind.
Jose.
It sounds like that's pretty universal. So I'm just going to shift gears and make a little bit of a joke here. Maybe we should just change it to the same way that doctors do it, right? Instead of going through all this rigmarole of learning science and the science and nature of everything, we should just call it flooring installation practice. That way, no one can come after us for anything. That's really all I have.
You gotta get that. You gotta get that
right.
You got to get that Mal flooring insurance then. Yeah, I would say project conditions, understand how those, after you've done what the gentlemen have mentioned here, make sure you understand the environment and what you're being asked to do, and that not to be fearful of pushing back on whether or not you should be installing on that given day or in those given conditions. Being firm in your belief of what you've just read and having the courage to tell the superintendent or the job foreman or whoever's on your deal,
Yeah.
the site conditions are not up to par. I've just called the office and let them know, but I can't install without the condition, not and provide warranty without the conditions. That then it puts it back on the store, which in our case, we would write a letter stating all the potential. We have a standard letter, tells them everything that can happen if they don't do something about the site conditions. And very, very rarely do they say go ahead, but then sometimes when they do, that letter is prepared and they're signing off. This is not a simple sign off like you accept that there's no warranty. This thing has to be articulated in a way that you tell them not only what the potential problems are, but what causes you have to lay it out in a total way before that would hold up in court. So if you are going to take that method or take that route, make sure that I would consult with an attorney to make sure that you're preparing a document correctly. So,
I mean, we are the professionals, right? And that's what it boils down to. If you are that professional,
that's
you're
what the
supposed
judge.
to know all this.
That's what the judge would say.
All right, Huddle crew. Jason, thanks for joining us today, dude. It was a great conversation. I hope
Stuart.
you had fun.
Good
guys,
stuff.
thanks again.
Yeah.
As usual, it was a great podcast with you two. And we look forward to having Jason on again in the future.
Let's do it.
Pass the word around, get some people. The more viewership we get, the more we can promote proper installation techniques. So if you like the content, even if you don't, like Daniel likes to say, give us a thumbs down, but give us a thumbs up. Comment, tell us what we are doing great. Tell us what topics you'd like us to cover, that kind of thing. And
If you don't like it, come on and talk to us. Tell us what we're supposed to be talking about.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. You guys keep it up, man. This is what we gotta do. One love in the community. Spread and share the love.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you next Tuesday. And we are out.